Oh,
Hey everyone, it's Darla Kirchner. I am a brand strategist and love to work with identity, and I work with a lot of entrepreneurs and small businesses and startups. And I want to introduce to you a new friend of mine. His name is Andrew, and Andrew is the CEO of The Story Source. It's a consulting company that works with artists, entrepreneurs, and business people to help them tell amazing stories. And we all know I truly believe in storytelling. I think it's something so important to tell your story, to be authentic to who you are. This is something that it resonates with me forever. And so when Andrew and I met online, I thought, hey, we're going to have some virtual coffee, which we kind of didn't have coffee. We kind of had water over lunch. But
yeah, it doesn't have as much virtual caffeine. I could use a little bit of that.
Exactly. So Andrew, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do and all that good stuff. We want to talk about you.
So I'm a storyteller, entrepreneur, and business coach, and I run a company called The Story Source. We help entrepreneurs, as Darla was saying, business people, a lot of different folks, mid-career professionals too, incorporate personal narratives into their work in a bunch of different ways. So it's often pitching and presenting, but it's with mission statements, with bios. Effectively, wherever a good story needs to be told, we help them do that. I've done work with corporate clients from PBS, American Express, and Google, and then I've worked with a lot of small startups, 1 and 2 and 3 person teams, to help them get funding for ideas, for products, for companies. I've helped people with TED Talks. So it's a variety of different things, focusing around helping people incorporate personal stories, narratives from their lives and their work into the work that they're doing. And really fun stuff.
Yeah. And so when you and I connected on, I think we connected on Twitter, right?
Yeah.
And when we started talking, and we have such a kindred, we're very similar in the fact that, I do the branding. And so it's all about knowing your why and what your story is and what your mission is, what your purpose is. And so when we were talking, I'm like, oh, we have to go Blab. So I appreciate you coming on.
And I didn't even know what Blab was. So I was like, I thought we were blabbing already.
And we were. And if you don't know, Andrew is also a comedian. And so there's probably going to be a little bit of laughter here and there.
Well, that's the funny part, is that it's not so funny, but that's kind of where I got my start, and I can maybe tell you a little bit about that in a minute.
Absolutely. So since this is your first time, and I'm giving him like the quick edited version of things, you'll see like little hands on the bottom of your screen. Do you see little hands over here? Do you see me giving you props?
Oh, I'm getting your face.
Hands.
So
that means I'm giving you, so it's called giving props. You can click anywhere on my picture to give me props. And so if people, we have people that join us, if they start giving you, if their face starts popping up, that means they like what you're saying. So there you go.
That's good. It's better than the Facebook like, which is apparently for your marketers out there not so effective anymore. I feel like there should be a little middle finger. If you really disagree, you can give me a middle finger, and I'll just give you a middle finger back. It's the New York salute.
It's the New York salute. Yeah. So just so you all know, Andrew hails from NYC. He's in the Big Apple.
Well, I actually am from San Francisco, but I've been here for a while.
That's right. You did tell me that. You're from San Francisco, but you've been in New York for a while now, right? Yes. Right. And you came out. So tell us a little about your story. So you came from San Francisco, and how'd you get there?
So I came into comedy, but I'm originally from San Francisco, and I went to college in the East Bay at UC Berkeley. I studied environmental economics and policy, which was fun for a while. And then I got a job doing economic analysis, class action securities fraud analysis for a small firm in Silicon Valley, and it was as fun as you can imagine. And I did about as much work as I could imagine I wanted to do, which was not very much. But I spent a lot of time reading blogs, sort of immersing myself in the world of storytelling. My sister's a journalist, my dad is an attorney, and my mom was a marketing executive for many years. So I was sort of immersed in the world of narrative storytelling. So I spent all my time reading these stories, and they quickly discovered this, and they relieved me of my duties very kindly. But they gave me a little bit of money, And I took the money and I started taking improv classes. I started taking some writing classes in the Bay Area, and I moved to New York City to pursue comedy in, I want to say, 2009. And I went through the whole improv program at the Upright Citizens Brigade. I went through the part-time acting program at the Atlantic Theater, it was David Mamet's theater. And then I took a couple playwriting and screenwriting classes at a variety of different places, HB Studio among them, the Magnet Theater, the Pit, and was performing all over, kind of doing improv here and there. And I took this class on storytelling at the Upright Citizens Brigade and just fell in love with the medium, the idea that you could be dramatic and comedic in the same space, and started performing with a small group all over New York. Performed for Ira Glass, who, if you are familiar, is the host of This American Life and is a fairly prolific storyteller himself.
Okay.
And
Very cool.
as I was sort of performing, I was simultaneously writing for a blog because I'd been doing some stuff for public radio. Interned briefly for a woman who's a correspondent for Marketplace. I was a DJ at Calex and did a couple different programs when I was out in California. So I was sort of moving in the direction of public radio, but I was writing for a blog called Brooklyn, No Money in Kings County kind of thing. And wrote an article about how you could make money teaching your passion. And this was in, I want to say about 2010, 2011. And the article got a bunch of press. And I started thinking, well, I've done all this improv, I've done all this writing, I've done all this storytelling. And at kind of around this time, I was starting to work for The Moth, which is the premier first-person narrative performative storytelling organization, really in the world. They started here in New York in 1997, I believe, by George Dawes Green, and they're now in at least 20 cities all over the world. But they showcase personal stories. They have story slams, they have different events. So I was coaching kids and community members on how to tell their stories. So I was immersed in storytelling, and I created this class on storytelling, effectively, at the Brooklyn Brainery in Response. And the first class sold out in a week, and the next one sold out in 2 days. And I kept selling these classes out. And about 3 months down the line, I got an email from the director of the agency of the Brooklyn Brainery saying that there was a digital strategy company wanted to hire me to do a workshop. Was I interested? And I was like, sure, because they were offering to pay me what I would have made at Trader Joe's where I was working in 2 hours. Or no, I'm sorry. In 2 hours, they were offering to give me what I would have made in 2 weeks over there.
2 weeks. Exactly.
Still not a crazy amount of money, but it was certainly.
But it's better, right?
Yeah. So I started doing these workshops, and the first one was okay, but it didn't necessarily speak to all of the needs of the organization. So I started reading and immersing myself in this world of business and storytelling, and I discovered kind of as I was going through it that there was a lot of jargon out there. And the word storytelling was thrown around without a lot of meaning or intention. Now, intention is maybe the wrong word, without a lot of focus.
Yes.
And there was this space for creating stories that were meaningful for people and infusing them into their work. Because ultimately, this is how I got connected to my work, and this is how many people are looking to connect with both their work and with their clients. So there was certainly a need there.
Yeah, absolutely. Very cool. I love hearing your story. I think it's awesome. And I think that's what a lot of people will relate to. They can connect to that. They can either relate to it or they want to, that's where they want to be. So, I think, it's inspiring to them. So, I think it's an important thing to do is to talk about, talking about your story and stuff. So that's awesome.
Absolutely. Ultimately, storytelling is useful for a lot of different reasons. Not only does it help with self-expression, but it's increasingly, as the economy moves in a service direction and away from hard products. That's not entirely true, but that's the direction of the economy. Storytelling overall and being able to differentiate yourself using narrative, whether it's highlighting your own story, your customer stories, your client stories, becomes increasingly important. It is the differentiating factor in the business. And ultimately, it's how you cultivate relationships with your friends, with your family, and with the people who are part of your organization.
Right. I'm very big on building relationships, so I think that's important too. And then also, I think one of the things I just started really investigating, and I've known about this for a while, and I'm curious if you've done any work with archetypes. You've done any work with that, like turning my personality types and things?
Yeah, I mean, I've read about that stuff. I tend not to use archetypes. I mean, it's an interesting point of reference, but I find it very limiting. It's like there's a lot of discussion in the world of storytelling about the hero's journey and Joseph Campbell.
Yeah,
wonderful stuff. I love it.
Right.
You know, one of the pillars of the Western canon. But when you start imposing life on this form, it loses. There's an organic quality that it loses, and a certain resonance. So I try not to sort of force people into archetypes. They're interesting. I think of it almost like astrology.
Right.
Where
that's interesting. That's an interesting analogy.
It's not a perfect analogy because there's a little bit more to archetypes than that. But if you believe it, you see the truth within them. But that doesn't kind of prima facie, I believe is the right Latin word, make it true. Right.
I think there's a combination of things. I just took another quiz literally yesterday, and I thought, oh, well, I'm pretty much that, but I'm also this and this and this, so,
and that's,
yeah.
Right. And part of the work that I do is helping people tap into their own stories apart from this big idea of a brand story. Because I often find, and a lot of people conflate the work that I do with branding. I kind of respond this way, that a brand story is sort of one story that you want to pump out in a variety of different ways, in a variety of different media channels. But what I do is I help people uncover the stories that exist beneath the surface of the brand. And there are lots of different stories from different aspects of your life and your work that you can use in different ways. So it's a more differentiated, I would say.
Yeah, and I think that's important because I think a lot of people tend to shy away from that, because when they think about themselves as a brand, whether they are a personal brand or they are a business brand, I think there's a lot of fear maybe attached to being that transparent. And so I think it's what you're doing is it's important to do. And it's something that takes a while. I mean, it's taken a while for me to become more authentic and more transparent and vulnerable, I guess, to share some of these stories and still trying to figure out what story should I be telling for this situation. So whatever the situation is.
And I think the more you do it, the better you get at it, just naturally. But it's also understanding media and what types of stories are best suited for different channels. You're not going to write a novel and put it on Twitter. In much the same way, you're not going to put tweets into a book. I mean, you might if you're writing a book about tweeting. But it's being able to, it's the whole thing about the medium and the message. But increasingly, the medium, if the medium was the message before, now the message defines the medium, or the message dictates the medium, I should say. Yeah. So what you're trying to put out, you want to kind of customize accordingly. But that's a whole other separate conversation.
Yeah, exactly. But I understand what you're saying, and I agree. I think it's just there is something to be said about having a sense of clarity and knowing what your purpose is. It helps you drive what your mission is. Will help get you your purpose statement, your value proposition statement, all that stuff. So you have clarity so that when you're talking to people, they understand.
Yeah,
this is who I am and what I do.
I'm glad you said who I am and what I do as opposed to why I do it, because often, and this is talking about sort of a little small piece of advice. There's a big theme in storytelling online now about sort of talking about why you do it.
Right.
And that's wonderful. It's, it's important that you understand why you do what you do, but it isn't necessarily important for the other people. They just want to see how you do it. And often the art of storytelling is to show people how you do something. When you show people how you do something, you will implicitly tell them why you do it. You don't need to, it's a showing, not telling. Or it's a showing and telling simultaneously.
Right. I think your why is your internal, and that's what drives you, but you don't necessarily have to use it to share out to work, because I agree with you. People want to know what's in it for them.
Well,
how are you going to help them?
They want to know what's in it for them, but they want to know what it is that was impactful for you to do the thing that you do. Because ultimately that's how you foster a relationship. And when, as you know from the world of branding, when you are working with anyone, whether it's someone internally or someone externally, you are cultivating a relationship. And when you are talking about a brand, you're cultivating a relationship with something that you've created. And it's being able to allow that to breathe and to feel connected in the moment.
Yeah,
as opposed to just pushing an agenda.
And that's selling, right? And so
it is the art of selling, ultimately.
That's the difference, but I feel the difference between, storytelling. It's still a sense of selling, but it's more about connecting and building those relationships and making those connections.
It's sharing an experience.
Here's my stuff.
And then getting people excited about being a part of that experience, ultimately. Because it's been impactful for you. And I think that's what's often missing. People want something from someone else, and it's very explicit. I mean, you've been in a situation where someone's been trying to sell something to you, and that's the nature of the interaction. They are selling to you. They're not having a conversation with you. They are
with you. Exactly.
And then as soon as you buy it, you're off the phone, or they're off the phone, and then they're on to something else. And it's gross. It sucks. And I, for better or worse, have categorically pushed back on that. Anytime I sense that someone or something is selling me on something, I immediately just turn off. And I find the whole process offensive in a lot of different ways. And part of the reason why, if we're actually getting back to why I went into storytelling, is because I didn't come from the world of branding and marketing or even sales, really, although in the process of developing my business, I've learned a lot about all of those. And it's important to be able to, those are different buckets that have different sets of jargon and lingo that you need to be able to speak to. But I think ultimately it's about fostering a relationship with someone. Because regardless of what they buy or don't buy, you want to be, you're in it for the long haul. You love to do what you do, and you've tapped into your own story, and it's being able to share that authentically with people, and then have them get excited about your excitement in a natural and authentic and organic way.
Right. And that's what I find. Yes, and I think that's the biggest difference. I know when I first started out, and you hear all the gurus, and you hear all because I focus a lot on the online marketplace, and I have people that would say, oh, well, this guru says that you need to be getting this amount of people on your email list, and you need to be making this much money every month.
Oh, that's gross.
And so you're striving to do that, and you're going, okay, everybody else is doing that. That's what I do, but it never felt right. I felt like I was selling, and that did not come naturally to me. I don't like that.
Well, it's also, I mean, I encounter this a lot when I work with people, and I'll start to sort of pull their stories out of them. And I'll ask them, what is it that you're looking to do, and to do what? I'll sort of engage with them all the time and ask them sort of to do what. And people just, their gut reaction, their knee-jerk reaction is to just say to make money.
Yes.
And that's true on a very surface level.
Yes.
But
yeah.
often what I do, actually all the time, is start to pull stories out of people that will demonstrate that will help them get to something deeper. Because we only have whatever it is, 8 hours to work and roughly 8 hours of leisure time during the day, 16 hours.
Right.
And we choose to do what we choose to do with our time is an indication of what we care about. If you believe in behaviorism and Skinner. So what we're doing right now, we do for a reason, whether we're aware of it or not. And there's something that we love in or get something from in the work that we're doing now. So it's being able to tap into that. And often that doesn't involve money. Because money's and I was an economist. And I did this for years, so I know perhaps better than some that the money is a placeholder for other things.
Exactly, it is.
Yeah, if people, when people are selling the idea of making more money, they're selling they're selling something that's a placeholder for something else, and it's very transparent. Right. Because there's a reason behind all of this. We're sitting here chatting because hopefully you and your listeners are getting something out of the conversation, as opposed to something that they can use just to make more money.
Exactly.
It'll help them feel more connected to themselves, to you, to an idea, to a brand, to an experience.
Yeah. And that's ultimately, I have realized that I've let a lot of that other external stuff go, because it's like, for me, it's about making a difference. I mean, I'm busy right now. You and I were just talking about how busy and how crazy our week has been, but this is important to me to give back and to pay it forward and to help my community. And I try to align myself with people like that. The people that want to make $1 million, that's fine. You're just not you're probably not going to be in my wheelhouse.
Well, the paradox of it is that often the people who go out explicitly looking for money are the people who don't get it.
I agree with you there, because I know there was a while that's what I felt like I was doing.
I mean, and this sort of actually gets back to my own story. In my life, every time I've the things that I've gotten that have been most meaningful, I've gotten by sharing things authentically about myself, whether it's in the venue of comedy, whether it's in the venue of storytelling, or with my writing. And other people have uncovered the value in that. And in the process, and this is actually how the business really started, I was drafted into it. They've found the value in what I was offering. We were actually talking before about favorite quotes. Yes. And I mentioned to Darla that there was a quote from Samuel Beckett, and we'll get there a little bit later.
Yeah, we will. We'll definitely get there.
And I'll share that. But there's actually another quote that a professor of mine in college, this public policy professor, said that it sort of stuck with me. And it was that the world has a way of figuring out what you're good at. And it will sort of push you in a direction of not only what you're good at, but where there's value. And
I love that.
Well, and it's been true for me with comedy, especially. I might think I'm funny, right? I'd write something and then I'd look at all of the structure, and it would, the joke would build organically. It would have a clear punchline, a clear setup. And then I could get up on stage and tell it. And if nobody laughs, how funny is it really? So
exactly.
Your audience has a better sense of what's funny, what's interesting, what's engaging, what's true, and what's real than sometimes you do. And often, actually all the time, the work that I do helps people uncover what's real for them so that they can share that with their audience and have an impactful and meaningful connection.
Right. So we've got a couple of questions here since you just broke. So Barbara just said, too many people speak about getting rich rather than finding meaning in what they do and what they offer. The value is finding meaning in your work. So I agree with that. So what do you think about that?
Sounds good to me. Yeah. I mean, better than not finding meaning in your work.
Yes, but I
Uh,
think it is. I think it is. Well, I think it's when you find meaning of why you do what you do. I know you don't like that why thing, but I think if
no,
you,
it's
you
not. I don't want to say it's not that I don't like the why. I think the
okay,
why is tremendously important, but when you articulate a why, it doesn't tell people who, what, when, where, and how. It's an
exactly,
explanation, and it pulls people
yeah,
into a world where they're going to give yet another explanation. It's like you
right,
could say, "Why do you like comedy?" Well, I like to
mm-hmm.
entertain people. Well, why do you like to
Mm-hmm.
entertain people? Well, I like, feeling connected. Well, why
Yeah.
do you like feeling connected? Well, there's a story.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So that leads to the next question. So Michelle just hopped on. Thanks for joining us, ladies. And Michelle asking, what is your background? So we did talk about this a little bit, Michelle, or a little earlier on when we started. But basically, I'll let Andrew kind of answer this a little more. But he has a consulting company, and
Yeah.
he helps people tell amazing stories.
Well,
Yeah.
I try to make them as amazing as possible, and uh, that would be the value proposition. But
Yes.
as I
That's
was saying before, the truth about how amazing they are is really in the results and how people
right.
what people do with these stories. And I
Exactly.
could tell some stories about successes that I've had with clients and things that have made me particularly happy and proud. Um,
Uh-huh.
but in
Well, let's
terms
go.
of, well,
I
I'm
was going to
sorry.
ask you, but let's go the opposite. Let's go the
Yeah.
opposite. What's been really challenging for you in your career?
Uh, in my career, well,
Yeah, or in your life,
I,
whatever.
I mean, I would say just on the surface, it
Mm-hmm.
would be I because I was drafted into this, I didn't necessarily have a plan for how to do it, so everything happened
Right.
organically.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I'm actually now about 4 years in, and I've
Great.
had a decent amount of success, which I have a lot of gratitude for, and I'm very happy about
Yeah.
because it allows me to grow the business and offer more things to more people.
Right.
But what what were the biggest challenges? I would say it was kind of uncovering that this was what I wanted to do, and
Mm-hmm.
being able to I would say the second major challenge was being both determined enough to move forward with my particular approach and flexible enough to integrate all of the
Mm-hmm.
feedback that I was getting from my clients in order to
Smart.
actually be in that conversation. Because
Right.
like going back to comedy, if you're if you tell a joke and your audience doesn't laugh, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad joke. It just means that the joke didn't land with this particular audience. However, if you tell that same joke 300 times to 300 different audiences and it doesn't land, there may be something wrong with the joke. Or there
Ah.
may be something wrong with the delivery. But it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. It just means that you need to start to address that. So it's being able to address the challenges that my clients are having along with my particular approach and allow the two to co-evolve.
Okay.
So it's truly
That's
being
great.
present in that.
And present, I think, is a very important thing. And so I apologize if I feel like I'm not being present because I'm trying to listen to trying to get the
Oh
chat
yeah, I
too.
see. That's
So
this the other thing about being a challenge that I've had is that I completely ignore social media. And I should, because it works for me. It kind of alerts me to all of this stuff, and that's how we're here now. But I totally understand. You got to address the live chat, folks.
right. So your audio is going. I don't know if it's your audio, ladies. Can you guys hear? Because it looked like it was getting a little wonky for me. I know what he was saying, but I didn't know if anybody else heard him. Yes, wonky. Okay, wonky is my word. So
Wonky.
yeah, yeah. So
Better?
he was saying that you might want to just hold it up a little
Okay,
bit
I'm gonna
because
hold
for
it
some
up.
reason it was like kind of going out.
Not so good for the
You've
visuals.
got an earbud then. Yeah, no worries about that. So Michelle's asking, you said something about comedy. He started out in comedy.
Yeah.
And so from there he's incorporated that. You still are a comedian, correct?
Yeah, so I did primarily some improv stuff, but I did a little bit of stand-up and a little bit of sketch and some writing. Yeah.
Okay.
And I had a storytelling show for 3 years that I hosted, and I did. It was oriented around comedy, but there was some dramatic stuff. I included.
Very cool.
And I'm still
Very
in that world a little bit, though the focus is primarily with the business.
Yeah, and it's funny because I think you bring your sense of humor with you, because that's part of who you are, and I love that, because when we were first starting the conversation, he had said something, I was like, oh my God, that's hilarious. So, but anyway, her question is, she'd like to incorporate more humor into her stuff. Where to start? So Michelle, what exactly do you do? She says, so for us boring marketers, what are some of the basics about comedy we should know?
The basics about comedy. There are.
Is that a whole other show?
Well, I mean, it's a whole other show, but there's comedy, and then there's comedy in marketing, and then there's comedy in sales, and being funny, and the mechanics of being funny, and cultivating it. But what I will say is that being a good storyteller involves being a good listener, and being a good comedian involves being an acute listener to yourself, meaning the things that are funny to you, and then being an acute listener to your audience, the things that are funny to your audience, and then being an acute listener to the world and what's actually going on and being engaged. So it's using all of your listening skills to bear on the message that you're putting out into the world. I say message because it's not necessarily a story, but a story may incorporate, or a message may incorporate stories. So in terms of the basics of that comedy, listening is crucial. Being able to find unusual things out in the world, play them as patterns, and that starts to get a little bit into the mechanics of comedy. And then be able to tie them back to an experience.
Oh, that's great. And then would you think tying it back to experience that happened to you? Because I know a lot of comedians do that. And when you think about being, she's saying that, yes, the mechanics. So,
I know. It's a whole other show, which I'm typing in now.
We'll do this again and have a whole other show.
Yeah, and I actually write on my blog about how to make there's some tips on my blog, which I'm going to
put that in there, because we'll definitely have Andrew. I'm going to be making this into a blog too, ladies, and it'll be over on my website. So Andrew popped in his website, and you're more than welcome to go over there and join his list and read his blog, and he shares lots of information. Andrew lives in New York City right now, and he hosts courses and workshops there too, which if I was in NYC, if I get over there, you have to let me know when you're doing that. Or if you ever want to come this way, I can hook you up.
To Cincinnati?
Yeah.
To beautiful Cincinnati, Ohio?
To beautiful Cincinnati, Ohio. Don't laugh at me.
I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing with you.
Of course you are.
What was the WKRP in Cincinnati?
It was WKRP in Cincinnati.
Small world. When I worked at Trader Joe's in California, my boss was one of the early writers on WKRP in Cincinnati. Yeah, wow. He ended up doing too much cocaine and started working at Trader Joe's. So, by the time I met him, he had calmed down a little bit. But the 70s were, I guess, kind of a wild time.
Wild and crazy time. Even in Cincinnati it was. Of course, that was taking place in California. But so you never know. Would you ever want to do that? Would you ever want to take your workshops and either take them online or travel?
I have, actually. Cool. So I teach at General Assembly in addition to NYU, and I was teaching at Media Bistro. That's currently on hiatus. We're sort of in the process of developing something. But I've taught in all over the world with General Assembly, and then with the corporate engagements. I was just out in Denver last week. I've been to the UK. I've been all over the US, San Francisco, LA, New York. Well, I'm in New York, Boston, DC, Chicago. I've worked with, I go to conferences all over the world, and then I give talks all over the world. So It's very mobile because storytelling, it's one of these things where not only is it everywhere, there's an appreciation for it everywhere.
Exactly. There is. And I think a lot of people are starting to get more and more finding it to be an important tool for them too. So when you're talking about like where you feel like you are in your sweet spot or in your zone. What do you love to do? Like if you do you like, I'm like, for me, I like to like bang it out and, work on my, if I've got questions, I'll like literally put things up and with sticky notes, I'm a sticky note fan.
Yeah.
So I'll do a whole lot of ideas and map, brain mapping and things like that, and stick it up on my wall or up on my boards, and I put everything into Evernote. So, but what do you do, like when you feel like I'm in my zone and I'm going?
In creating my own stories and the workshops, and with teaching and with writing, because there are lots of different angles. I'm a coach in addition to all of this, so I work with people one-on-one. Yes. So when I'm coaching people, it's a whole other thing.
Yeah, I would say, maybe like either one, whatever you feel comfortable talking about. I mean, I know you're coaching too, so the ladies here, the audience might love to hear that too. Like, when you're working with someone, a
lot of the coaching that I do is helping people uncover these stories. So it's engaging them in conversations about their previous work, the work that they're doing now, and then the objectives that they have for the future. So when I'm in that mode, I'm sort of aggressively taking notes, but I'm also very present. And I do everything by hand first. I always write stuff out by hand and then I type it in. Not everything for the blog posts, obviously, but if it's important stuff, when I'm connecting with my clients or when I'm processing information for the workshops, I always write stuff by hand. I would say in terms of tips, just for how to start to find your stories, being present, sort of getting present with your body and then present with your thoughts before you start to find the stories. Because often what happens is you need to take a few minutes to let go of everything that's preventing you from being present. I said before about how the best thing you can do for yourself is, I would say in life in general, is to cultivate your sense of your listening ability, your ability to listen to others, to yourself, and to the world. And so it's being able to be present with all of that, write it down and process and then let it go. And once that's out there in the world and you've sort of let go of all of that stuff, it's being able to very concretely reconstruct experiences without any judgments, without any explanations or analysis, and just allow it to flow out of you, so that once you've you've jotted it down, not necessarily written it out in long form, but outlined it, you can find the end of the story, which will help you sort of reshape the entire story as a whole. And part of the work that I do is helping people unspool all of that so that they find these end moments and then can reshape the stories and use them in a variety of different ways. So in terms of my own process, that's the orientation. And I do that with myself, at least I try to, on a daily basis, to spend at least 15 to 30 minutes writing. And it inevitably will start with just my thoughts and feelings, and I'll have to spool those out and then get to the stories. And I find amazing things. And I also start to recall incredible things. I use visualization techniques of kind of placing myself back in these spaces. I use different exercises. Art Jones!
You know who that is?
I know Art Jones.
Hi, Art Jones. We're glad you're here.
Yes. I owe you an email, Art Jones. First Lab.
Oh, awesome. That's great. We're glad you're here. Hey, back. Anything to do with art, I'm in it. It's interesting you talk about that, about journaling and stuff. That's something I'm trying to do more of. I have a sketchbook because I come from the creative side. Because when you were talking earlier about storytelling is not necessarily your, my background is in design. So I learned and tried, worked on the whole, learning how to market and learning the branding and why it's so important. And I realized it's something I really love to do, and making those connections. So yes. So, so I think those are great tips. So since we're on the tip zone, is there any other tips that you could share with us about,
story, about what makes an effective story or a good story? Yes.
So
regardless of what you're doing, this tip is going to be kind of general, but it's I mean, it's more useful than perhaps many of you realize. You know what? I'm not going to sell you short. You guys are smart. It's honest, meaning truthful, personal, meaning you have a stake in the outcome, and specific. So honest, personal, and specific all the time. Because if something's dishonest, your audience will know very quickly. If it's vague, people will ask questions because they can sense when you're being evasive. And that it's personal, meaning.
So you said, okay, honest, personal, and what's the other one?
Specific.
Okay.
So you want it to be honest, personal, and specific. And if it's not those things, most likely you're lapsing into cliche. You're moving into a different realm, and it's people will notice very quickly.
Got it. I added in our little chat section. So, yeah.
I would say this is true for storytelling, but it's also true for that can be applied to lots of different avenues, marketing, branding, especially. And the answer and the stories exist in the specifics. And within the stories is the meaning, and within the meaning is the brand and the connection and the relationship. And by extension, the opportunity, financial or otherwise. Which is why which is why the whole notion of I will make you rich is, I mean, it's not just offensive for that purpose because it's gauche and disgusting, but it's offensive because it doesn't promise anything specific. It violates that rule.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. Well, and I think a lot of people see beyond that. I was doing a blab a couple weeks ago with someone else I had also met online, and she is a neuroscientist. And she said, a lot of times, it was really interesting talking to her about the whole process of, your memories and your thoughts and, your feelings all, that's where everything, why when you talk to people, when you relate to people, and people can see that, they can sense that, they know when you're blowing smoke.
Absolutely. Well, the thing is, a lot of people won't tell you explicitly, but they know subconsciously.
Yes.
And this is, I mean, there's a whole area of study with user experience doing eye tracking. And in economics, there's a whole study. It's called hedonics. I believe it's called hedonics, where
never heard of
they look at demonstrated preference, right? You might say that you don't like sweets or you don't like candy, and yet you eat 20 candy bars a day. I'm not saying you, Darla. I'm the hypothetical.
I don't eat candy bars now. Cookies,
or like carrots. Okay, carrots. Let's just make it healthy.
Let's go with carrots.
Everybody loves carrots, right? If you had carrots or candy. But clearly, if you eat 20 carrots a day or 20 bags of carrots a day, how much do you dislike carrots? So it's being able to see what people are actually doing.
And I totally agree with you there. So that's great. So when you're talking about any other tips that you want to share with us? I didn't want to cut you off with that.
I have a bunch. Nothing that comes to mind, but a lot of the stuff is on my blog.
So we're definitely going to be talking.
I try to put a lot of good content on there. It's stuff that I mine all the time in my workshops. It's
do you go back over and update a lot of things? I noticed I've been doing that. So I'm updating blog posts and stuff because
I am. This is, you asked about challenges before. I think when I started doing this, I put all of the information that I knew initially on the blog. I didn't. I didn't think about it in a strategic way. I just wrote all of this stuff that was true from my experience and in studying storytelling, and people responded to it because I thought a lot about it. I wrote a lot. They were, they were thoughtful, engaging posts, and they got a lot of press. But after doing that for, having 2 or 3 blog posts, serious blog posts, 500 to 1,000 word pieces.
That takes a lot of time.
It took a lot of time, and I also exhausted a lot of the material. So it was being able to kind of build it back up. And I'm right now in the process of adding additional information, and I thankfully now have someone who monitors the blog, and we have conversations to get more, to be more active on there.
Right, and that's smart to do. That's strategy. That's better.
Strategy. Exactly.
And it's all, we all learn, right? Like you and I were talking when we first started the conversations. Like it's just multiple times of ebbs and flows. And you were saying failures, and you fail better.
Yeah. Darla was asking me about my a quote, and it's the old Samuel Beckett. Try again, fail better. And
love that quote.
Yeah, what I was telling Darla earlier is that we don't really succeed so much as we just fail better in life, and that we learn to make fewer mistakes around certain things. And if you live a big life and you are putting yourself out there, your story, your brand, your company, your product, and you're pushing it forward, you will have unsuccessful outcomes.
Yes.
Meaning the things that you are looking for, you won't necessarily get. But that doesn't mean that you yourself are a failure.
Right.
Or that it is a failure. The failure, such as it is, and I really don't even like that word, but we'll use it because it's easily understood probably by everyone.
Right.
The failure is in what actually it's a small failure. It's not a large failure. And over time, if you fail less in this particular area, you are actually succeeding. I liken it to sort of knowledge or understanding. It's an asymptote.
Yeah.
That the more we know, the more we know we don't know.
Say that again.
I said the more we know, the more we know we don't know.
Right. And I agree with what you're saying. I understand what you're saying about using the word failure too.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, because it's like, it's interesting too. And this, it's something else, we could have another whole conversation about this, but I think a lot of people, I have a lot of friends that are not entrepreneurs. They've been working in corporate world for, 20 plus years. And they look at me as I'm so brave. It's like, well, I'm not afraid to fail. And I think that's the difference. So there are some people I think that, just it's easier for them just go with the flow and stay on the mainstream. And then there's all of us that, those of us who don't. And I think that, but a lot of it will stop you too. If you're not willing to be authentic and share your story and dig deep to know who you are and, share that story with people, then you're not going to have the opportunity to fail because you're not going to put yourself out there as much. So
that's actually the only time when you really do fail.
Right.
The only real failure is not trying. It's like what Wayne Gretzky says, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Exactly. Love that. So I have to add that into my blog post.
Yeah. I mean,
when we do this, and
you don't make 100% of the shots that you do take either, but you do take them.
Right.
And other people see you take them, and that inspires them to take their own shots.
Right. And that's part of the story, right?
It's part of the story, but ultimately it's how you evolve into being a leader. Because
exactly.
Leaders such as they are, and again, there's a whole cottage industry defining what leadership is, the same way there is with storytelling, and everybody has a slightly different approach. But leadership is, in my opinion, the ability to take shots when other people won't necessarily, and take responsibility for those shots.
Exactly.
On a very basic level.
Yeah, I agree totally with that one. So what motivates you? What keeps you motivated to doing what you're doing and following the path that you're doing and being, helping other people learn how to tell their stories?
What motivates me? That's a good question. I would say on a very superficial level, just being able to pay my rent, and being able to survive. But it's the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Once I get beyond that stuff, what keeps me going is helping people transform the set of possibilities in their lives.
Okay.
The people who I work with have gone on to do unbelievable things. I had one guy who I worked with, who I helped unpack his story and share his story in for the Cannes Interactive Film Festival. He gave a talk. The talk ended up winning the Gold Lion Award. He spun that product off into a company. The company is now employs 10 or so people, been used by the White House, by organizations all over the world.
Oh.
I've helped people uncover stories that they've used in TED Talks. I've helped people give 45-minute long keynote presentations, sharing their stories. I've helped people get funding for startups. I helped a guy get into a healthcare accelerator, and now his company is on the road to being publicly funded. So what keeps me going is the opportunity to transform people's lives in a real way, and in the process to transform my life, because my life changes as my clients' lives change. They get new big opportunities to change the world in a literal way.
Yes.
As they express themselves honestly, personally, and specifically. And that changes me. Yeah. And it also changes how I approach storytelling overall. And it affirms my choice in doing what I do.
That's great.
Yeah, it's very life affirming.
Well said.
What's less life affirming is all of the mechanics of the business. You know, keeping up with email, keeping up with social media, having to deal with people poaching things from me and then not offering, integrity issues. And that's a whole other blab discussion that we could have. But on for me, I would say it's the opportunity for personal and professional transformation.
So how do you, and I love that. I love that. So at that, when you and I were having our instant virtual coffee.
That's right. The caffeineless coffee.
The caffeineless coffee. I thought, okay, I like him. I can resonate with him. And so, I think there's a lot to be said. Everything you're saying is very similar. You said it very eloquently. And, I want to be able to do that myself, because that's what I believe. I believe in, the more I help other people up, the more they help me up. You're always surrounding yourself with the people that lift you up higher.
Yeah, it's not just a platitude, right? And it's not something that we say just to either make money or make our business grow. It's true.
It's true.
And
exactly.
If it weren't true, then I'd be writing a book called "Why I'll Make You a Millionaire in 2 Days." Because that shit's just not true.
Yeah. And that's the thing. A lot of people say, what motivates you? It's like, I get excited about when I have clients that tell me that whatever I've done or have helped them has helped them. And so that to me is a form of success.
It is. And it's celebrating the small successes. I was, I keep coming up with these quotes as we're having the conversation.
I know. I'm going to go back over this, and we'll definitely be adding all this in.
But I'm present with now, and actually speaking of the biggest challenges, is kind of knowing where I want to go and then being where I am now. And those two things there's a discrepancy there.
Yeah.
But what I'm reminded of is from when I was in improv, there was this quote, and I can't remember if I've switched it around, but anyway, what resonates with me now is that there are 3 paths to success. You can take the elevator, where you get on and you get up to the top much faster, but you don't know exactly what to do because you've just traversed 10 floors in 20 seconds. So the shock of being up there is too much, and then often you just have to take the elevator back down, or you have to go back down to the floors. You can take the stairs, where if you walk, you'll get up to the top and you'll be really strong and you'll be able to stay there, but it takes a really long time to get up there, and there's no guarantee that you're going to last long enough to get up to the top.
Right.
Or you can get on the escalator, where you're moving up to the top, but you're not moving as fast as you would otherwise move in an elevator, but you also have the opportunity to walk on the escalator. And
exactly.
Ideally in life, in my experience, I want to be walking on an escalator. I want to be moving up with assistance from the people around me while also propelling myself up and pushing forward.
That's great. Yeah.
And so I think the way I started it, I was walking, and then I thought I wanted to take the elevator, but really it was just the escalator.
I think that's a great analogy.
I think it's a pretty solid analogy.
Yeah, that's a very good analogy, because I think of it as it being in the on the highway, and like always being in the fast lane. It's like I don't always want to be in the fast lane, because I mean I miss things. You miss things.
Oh
along
yeah.
the way.
Well, you miss turnoffs. You miss all of a sudden if the road changes. And you've got to stay going 75 or 80 miles an hour. Because if you slow down, and I experienced this in New York, if you slow down, there are a bunch of cars, leaning on the horn, telling you that you need to move over. Exactly. And then you have to go faster than you're really ready to go.
Right. And then eventually you're going to run out of gas.
Well, not only do you run out of gas, you start making questionable decisions. You start making bad choices. You start looking around. You start getting nervous. You start thinking about switching lanes, and then you miss the signs overhead. You're missing the mountains that are off to the side.
Yeah.
And you're missing the song that's playing on the radio. You're thinking about something else, and now all of a sudden you're switching back and forth, and people are passing you on the left, and you're wondering why you're doing this in the first place. So it's being able to be mobile enough so that you can stay in the lane that's appropriate and scale your business in a way that's manageable. And that's, if I were to say the real challenge that I'm having now, it would probably be that.
Really?
Figuring out which lane I want to be in at which time.
And that's, I almost think that, I appreciate your honesty in there, because I think a lot of people would probably say the same thing. They don't always know. And sometimes you just have to take time to reflect. Well, say, okay, where do I want to be?
And I think, there's a prevailing belief that you have to be killing it all the time,
right?
And that you're supposed to be strong in front of all of your investors all the time, in front of everyone. And I would say that pervasive belief, maybe not even belief, but a paradigm, creates a space of inauthenticity, where people are afraid to share the challenges that they're having. But if you were able to share the challenges that you're having, then you can start to tell stories about how you've overcome the challenges, or how you're stuck in certain challenges, and you've kind of created a space for addressing them.
And what you're talking about, that's kind of where I am right now. It's like I feel like I'm able to start to share some of this, and I've found that I was sharing some of those hard times. Not that you want to share always hard times. I want to have, you want to share happy times and stuff too. But to figure out how to share that story so that it does resonate, and it does, what's the end goal, that you want them to have. So, but I found that the more that I've done that, the more feedback I get, and the emails will come, because they're like, thank you for sharing that story. It really helped me. That type of thing.
And for me, I've come to a point with the company where I have to, for a while, I spent all of this time developing all these stories and experiences and workshops, and I put all of that stuff out there. And now it's created an audience, and I'm lucky enough to have clients who I feel very connected to. I feel connected to the work that I'm doing. But now I have to innovate yet again. And it requires a level of authenticity and vulnerability that I didn't necessarily need when I was putting everything that I'd spent so much time developing, doing. So it's being able to do that simultaneously, and that requires a certain finesse.
It does.
Ability to give yourself enough time and space to find something that's authentic, while also showing up for your clients and
Yeah.
you know, delivering the material that you know
That they need.
is good.
Right, right. And you're right. That does take finesse, and it does take trial and error.
It
And
does.
and effort and all that kind of good stuff. So one of the things I was going to ask, because I know we're kind of running over a little bit, and I don't
Oh
want
yeah.
to take up your time because I know how busy you are. But
For this,
you know,
I got time.
okay, good. So I know you and I talked about, you did a lot of research, and you like to read and things too. Is there a certain book that you would recommend when it talks about, we're talking about storytelling or about learning how to be more authentic with yourself, or anything that you would suggest that, hey, this is a good book?
Those are two different questions.
Sorry.
There's storytelling and then sort of being authentic with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
They're both
Mm-hmm.
sort of cottage industries, and there are lots and lots of books out there. And then there are whole books about the application of stories in business, and a lot of them are
Right.
not very good. But the one that the on storytelling that changed. There were a couple books that really shifted my outlook on storytelling and made me think a lot about it. Robert McKee's Story, which is a Bible.
Is it called Story?
It's called Story. It was published, I believe, originally in 1997, but there have been editions since then. He's a guru. He has these screenwriting seminars in LA and New York and London, and I think he actually teaches all over the world. But he's sort of a master storyteller.
Okay.
He's a guru.
Okay.
There's when I was acting, there's a book that I used to kind of refer back to. It's kind of the Tao Te Ching of acting, but it goes beyond that. Because to be a good actor, you have to be a good listener. You have to be very present with your scene partner, with the director, with your audience. And it's this book called True and False by David Mamet.
Okay.
David Mamet, I have a lot of problems with his politics. He's a bit of a misogynist, but he's also a genius.
Okay. Putting it in there for us.
Yeah, True and False.
Thank you.
And it's talking about sort of writing things that are true, not just for you, but for your audience. Sort of finding authenticity and experience. No, not David Mamet. David Mamet.
Oh, sorry. Let me X that out.
Like
okay, thank you.
Hamlet, except not Hamlet. And Mamet.
Yeah.
Gotcha. It's like that thing, except not at all.
Not at all.
Not at all.
But not quite. Gotcha.
It's like William Shakespeare, except not at all like William Shakespeare.
but anyway, but I think those are good. Those are two good books to start with.
It's a good book. And then there are a few others that pertain to business, and business is a little bit different just because the jargon is different, the orientation and the focus are a little bit different. Your audience is different. Expectations are different. So
yeah, absolutely.
That's there are a whole bunch of other people, but I would say for people looking to just grasp a little bit more about the basics of storytelling and writing, that's a great start. There's another book that I have that I refer to a lot, which is it's an NPR guide. I'm looking over at my bookshelf, which is not terribly well organized.
Trying to find, you can never find anything when you want it. That's the way it goes.
Yeah. And unfortunately, when you find the things, you don't really want them.
Yeah, exactly. But I can always add it into the post. Can always add it in there too. So this is a question you might go, really, Darla, are you going to go there? But I'm going to ask you a question, and you tell me, if you don't want to answer it, okay, I'm going. Okay, so let's pretend you travel back in time. Going. Right?
Okay.
We're going to travel back in time. You have the knowledge that you have today with you. You go back in time. What would you tell your younger self?
What would I tell my younger self? There's going to be this thing called blab, and someone is going to ask you this question, and you should really prepare an answer for this exact moment, because honestly, you're going to look really stupid if you don't have something. That's what I would say first off.
I love it. Like I appreciate your honesty.
People always, it's like, when would you like to go back in time? What era? How about 2 minutes ago, so that I could prepare myself for this idiotic moment right now. But more serious, I would say probably create a system of organization that makes it easier for you to do the things that you like to do, and gives you more time to do those things.
Yeah, that's smart. Yeah. Setting up systems.
Yeah, try to get enough sleep so that you're really present. And she's saying smell the roses.
Smell the roses. Love it.
Honestly, it's springtime in New York, and it's 53 degrees and raining, so ain't no roses to be smelled.
You don't want to go out there anyway.
No, but I don't even. I would actually say it's not. Don't smell. I mean, for me, don't smell the roses. Because if you're taking the time to smell the roses, you're not sort of living with the roses. You know, if you're removing yourself from the roses in order to smell them, you are not amidst the roses. And often in my life,
bring the roses in.
The times when I'm smelling the roses the most is when I'm in the rose garden.
True.
The roses are literally all around me.
Absolutely. So we understand what you're saying, Roxanne.
No,
but I understand what you're saying too, and I think, well, this is something else too. Yeah. So, would you want to be in the rose garden and be present there?
It's to try to find times and places where you feel very present and very alive, and then to maximize that.
Okay. Gotcha.
And to kind of be aware of the things that give you pleasure, and not in sort of a material sense, like, oh, I like to eat, I like to sleep, I like to do whatever. It's times when you're really engaged.
Right. I'm reading a book right now, and it's all about presence, and it's really good. It's making me
Mr. Wonderful's
more
here.
about. Yeah, Mr. Wonderful's here. Hi, Mr. Wonderful.
Mr. Wonderful, where have you been all our lives? We've been waiting.
He's been on Blab.
We've just been blabbing away, and Mr. Wonderful shows up.
Blabbing without you. It's pretty wonderful.
Look, I got lots of gratitude for especially Mr. Wonderful's presence.
I tell you. So tell me right now. Let the festivities begin. It is Friday, so we're ready. Amen to that.
Right. Du merci, c'est vendredi, as they say. Getting French in here.
Getting a little French on you. Now you're really trying to impress us now.
That's it.
So.
Well, Mr. Wonderful shows up. You can't just speak English.
I know. So what is going on now? What projects are you working on?
Yeah.
What's
happening? Right now, I'm in the process of rebranding a little bit. I have my company called The Story Source, so I'm rolling out a new website for The Story Source. I'm in the process of posting a bunch of new workshops. Those are coming up. Those are going to be day-long and multi-day workshops.
Okay.
I'm going to be restarting the blog. Well, not restarting, but adding more to the blog that's going to be specifically tailored to different areas. So keep your eyes peeled for that.
Perfect.
And I'm hiring some people to help me kind of reach broader areas. So doing a lot more specifically with different niche groups. So people in sales, people in marketing, because storytelling is important overall, and being honest, personal, and specific. I have worked with healthcare folks, yes. A couple different startups. And narrative medicine is a huge area
never
of
heard
study.
of that.
I don't know if, Roxanne, you work in the narrative medicine area. but it's increasingly important, and there are ways to sort of find stories and approach them in the health realm. So yes, I will probably be branching out, and then ultimately a little bit further down the line, partnering with some folks. I have some things kind of in the works to offer joint workshops.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely want to talk to you about that stuff because I love the whole workshop thing. And eventually I'm going to get you to come out here. Or I'll meet you in Chicago. I can do that.
Yeah, Chicago. No, look, I'm not. I was joking about Cincinnati. I've never been to Cincinnati. I've heard a lot about it. I understand you guys put chili on pasta, which seems like a drunk person's choice, but whatever.
Some people don't even call it chili, but that's a whole other blab.
Yeah, that's a whole other blab. Procter & Gamble will get you healthy after you eat too much Cincinnati chili.
Yes. GE's here, so we can get you, we got GE Aviation here. Yeah. So, hey, got a lot of people here.
Yeah.
So, but so it looks like Roxanne, I want to miss what she's saying. She blogs about having epilepsy. So that's a very important thing. My husband has a seizure disorder. So that's kind of near and dear. And talking about health, I've got a proposal out right now working with an elderly for elderly care. So talking about that. So branding is kind of important. So I'm glad that you are investing in your brand and that you're investing in your rebranding, because I think that's something everybody does and needs to do.
It's ironic that that I help people with finding stories about their brand that they use for branding, and I've been struggling with that myself. And so reaching out and having someone help me with sort of see my own stories has been unbelievably helpful. Yeah, every coach needs a coach.
Absolutely. Totally agree with you there.
Unless you're a commissioner.
Yeah. Good luck with that.
Yeah, well, I gotta tell the good story.
I am sure. So that's good that that you're doing that, and I think that it's important to do that. And a lot of people don't do that, or they don't realize. I know a lot of the clients I've worked with, they're like, I didn't realize how much I knew. I didn't know that I didn't know, or I didn't realize how much it affected so much more than just my logo. And it does, it's the essence who you are, and it's part of what your personality is too.
Well,
so, yeah.
I mean, for better or worse, because I didn't come from the world of branding and marketing, I thought that I would just put all of this information out there and it would just magically happen by itself. Little did I know there's a multi-billion-dollar industry created around helping people do this. I mean, I should have known. My mom was a marketing executive, but it's been very helpful to have somebody with that.
Mm-hmm. And and I have to say, I didn't come from that background. Although back when I was in college, I found myself leaning towards the more marketing people. And even after college, I aligned myself. I felt more comfortable with the marketing and department and the marketing people and the sales people, as opposed to the creative side, because they tend to be more creative than maybe, or like to express themselves more than I did. And so yeah, I think but you kind of you do need to know that, and whether you know it or not, I mean, people, you have to sell, you have to market for people to know who you are. And so I think there's better ways of doing it, and storytelling is it.
Yeah, it is.
In my mind.
But it's also it's having a strategy in place. It's having
absolutely.
It's having
absolutely
a methodology around that.
Exactly.
It's sort of like going back to comedy, right? You could have the best jokes in the world that people laugh at, but if there's nobody in the audience, there's nobody to laugh.
Exactly. And that's the thing. And people don't always understand that, or they keep just putting it out there and wondering, going on, Roxanne's laughing at that. It's true. Right. So, and the same thing about, social media. They'll spend all this time, or they'll hire a VA and they'll, spend all this time and energy posting things out there. But if they're not, one, having a strategy behind it, monitoring what's coming and what's not, what's working and what's not, then, it's not doing you any good. You're wasting efforts.
Right.
So, yeah, kind of digging in deep and knowing, what, who you are, why you do what you do, and then, who you are here to serve. That's another thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole other type of conversation, is knowing who your clients are.
Right. Well, it's it's my firm belief that that's embedded in the story.
That's something we should definitely. We're gonna be doing more blabs, Andrew.
I'm psyched. We're gonna be blabbing away. And
Blabbing.
Mr. Wonderful's gonna be chiming in and telling us about how wonderful we are or aren't.
Absolutely. Yes. And Roxanne, you can come and join us too and tell us all about it, because this is great. But yeah, so I'm so glad we got to talk about all this and share your story. And I really appreciate you being on the call with me
Absolutely.
today.
I'm thrilled to be here. I'm glad that my man Art Jones out in Arizona was joining us.
He's out in Arizona. Yes. Yeah, it's it's always great to meet people like here. And this is how I meet people here on Blab, and then I connect with them over on Twitter. So Roxanne, I will find you over on Twitter, and we'll have a little chat.
Yeah.
And I love doing that.
Yeah, this is fantastic. It's a great opportunity. I love this medium. And I'll just do a shameless plug here, if I may.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the time.
Go check out my new site is not yet up, but my old site is. Okay.
So while he's typing in, Chris, thanks for joining us. We're just getting ready to wrap things up. You're more than welcome to listen to the replay and connect with Andrew and to me too. So I'm so glad you joined us here, because we talked a lot. Andrew shared a lot about storytelling, and this is my site too. So Andrew, I will check it out. I would love to talk to you more about that. And I'd like to talk to you more about the whole branding thing.
Yeah, because I didn't ironically end up talking a lot about my my clients and about the experiences, which are amazing.
I know.
And I apologize for that, but I think that there's hopefully a lot of good stuff that we've discussed here. You guys have gotten some value out of it.
Place to start. Absolutely. It's been a great place to start. I think that we've got a lot of conversations that we can go from here, because there's a lot, like you said, there's a lot we can share. So yeah, so thanks for sharing your site with us and for joining us. And you guys, thanks for joining us today. Just know that I'm going to be putting this onto a blog, and it'll be over at darlakirchner.com. And you can get all of Andrew's links and
blog
all
posts,
of his
websites. I'm at the Story Source.
Yes. Put that in there too. So yeah, and if you go, yes, so he's at the Story Source on Twitter, and he answers that, or he has a little magician that comes on there and helps him a lot too.
Yes, her name is Katie. She's I don't know how little she is. She's actually very big. She's been very helpful. She sends people like Darla my way. But I'm on there, and I'm getting better at this social media stuff.
Yes. Well, it's good. It's good to put the face with the name, right? And I think you're doing great. So thanks for joining us, you guys. Thanks for joining us here today. We really appreciate it. Hop on over to the Blab. Join us here on Blab. We're gonna do We're gonna do some more of these, and we appreciate you guys being here.
Yes, thank you guys so much.
Thanks.